Welcome, everybody. The name of the show is The Next Chapter. I'm Fred Hughes, Amazon best-selling military sci-fi author. What's the show about? We talk about all things in the written word. Today, I'll be speaking with the people from Canon Publishing. They do a little bit of everything: military science fiction, fantasy, post-apocalyptic. It's a rather new press, but they're doing a lot of fun things, and they got a lot of interesting authors that are writing for them. So that'll be in the other later segments in the show. Speaking of Biz TV, I want to. They were gracious enough to allow me to do these videos and podcasts to talk about the written word and introduce people to what it's like being an author, and those people who are interested in becoming authors, how you can do that. It's not nearly as easy as it sounds. And some of you think writing is the hard part. There's a lot of other things that are just as hard. But to help support Biz TV, I'd like you to go to the website. Here it is. The Biz TV YouTube channel. Lots of interesting shows on the site. So go to the channel, subscribe, like my show if you like the content. Drop a note and let me know how you like how we've changed the content, because we are doing it a little differently now. I'm shooting the videos from home so that I can interact with the guests via Zoom in the evening, because many authors are still working full-time jobs. So they weren't available during the day when I was doing the show out of the studio. So I decided I'm just going to do it at night, and found that I can interact with them a lot easier. So before we get to the folks from Canon Publishing, I want to talk about some of the tools that some writers use. I mentioned a little earlier that writing, coming up with a story and putting it down on paper, a lot of people think is the hardest part. And for some people it is. It doesn't come natural. Didn't come natural for me. My first book, The Prince Awakens, I wrote as an independent. Took over a year for me to write it. And I really never did, I don't think, got all the mistakes out of it as far as grammar and punctuation and all the other things that I got criticized about. But the story was so good, it sold pretty well anyway. So, and then, most of you know the story. I turned around and went with Chris Kennedy, and he took it and completely re-edited it and cleaned it up. And we just crossed 2,400 reviews on that book. I'm pretty proud of it. But I want to talk about some of the tools that writers use, because it's just not enough to put the words on the paper. They need to be good words. They need to be well spelled correctly, obviously, with the punctuations in the right places. And there's some tools out there that can help you with that. I want to share with you share my screen again if I can. And here's the book I'm working on right now. And across the top here, this is Word. Some of you who, there's people who use Apple. There's a lot of creative people that use Apple. I am not comfortable using it. I've used the Microsoft products since they came out, 30 years ago. and I would be lost not understanding the shortcuts. But there are some people, you might use Google Docs. You might, like I said, you use Word. There's other word processing programs that are out there. Use what you're comfortable with. But remember, if you're going with a publisher or you're going to upload this yourself, Amazon only accepts stories or books that are in either word-rich format, or you have to convert whatever document you're working on into a PDF file, an Adobe file. That's the only two ways they'll accept an upload. And I know a lot of people struggle with that because sometimes when you transition from whatever you're working in to, if it's not Word, into Word, all your formatting will get screwed up. The same with Adobe. When you convert your document into Adobe, you might find that all your prompts and everything else are now all screwed up, and your page breaks are wrong, and it can be very frustrating. So there's that. I wanted to show there's also other programs, and I'm not making a pitch for Pro Writing Aid. You can see it up here on my right hand side. I subscribe to the Pro Writing Aid program. It provides a variety of different functions. Obviously, it does spell checking. It also does grammar. I think it does grammar and spell checking far better than the editor, and you can see it right up here. The editor that's in the Word program is okay, but Pro Writing Aid does a better job. Pro Writing Aid will also prompt you when you start writing in a passive tone. Or you're consistently writing in the past tense when the rest of the story has been being written in present tense. Or, I just started 5 sentences in a row with the. Or this was a habit. It took me a long time to break. I really liked the word originally. And in one of my earlier books, I used it like 110 times in a 90,000 word manuscript. Not a good thing. And Pro Writing Aid will point that out if you're overusing a word. Not going to go through and type some stuff so you can see how it works. But one of the things I do, there are people who will turn whatever assistant they have off and just type, and they type and they type and they type. And then when they're done with a paragraph or a chapter or whatever, they'll turn and go back and fix everything. My personal preference is I have it on and fix it as I go. I find that I end up with a very clean manuscript. We've talked about the fact that I'm a full-time author now. I've both I'm retired and I make enough money doing this that I can write full-time. I try to write 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. The important part of that is when I write 2,000 words a day, like so far today, I've written 1,800 words. That 1,800 words that I wrote, I'm going to almost guarantee 1,775 of them are going to end up being in the book. There's not a lot because I run the editing program as I go through, there's not a lot of editing once I'm finished because I did it as I was going along. I know authors that take 2 months to write call it 100,000 word book, and then they spend almost a month going back through and editing it and come out with a 85,000 word book. So it took them 3 months to write that book, and I can do the same book in 2. big deal when if you want to become a professional author and make a living doing this, you not only need to write impressive books that sell, you need to put them out at a fairly frequent basis so you keep your fan base. Well, enough said about that. We're going to talk to the folks at Canon Publishing when we come back from the break, and they're going to tell us what they provide, what services they provide for their authors. I think you'll be impressed. Both of these, J.F. Holmes, who's the president, is a great author. I was reading his stuff that he wrote back in the late 20-teens before I even became an author and was impressed. So when we come back from the break, Canon Publishing. My name's Fred Hughes, and the show is The Next Chapter. And we're back after the break. Thanks for coming back and joining us. I'm with John Holmes and Michael Morton from Canon Publishing. And I'm going to let them talk about their publishing house and what they do and what their work is. So take it away, John.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Appreciate it. So my pen name is J.F. Holmes, all right, but my name is Sean. And I've been writing for about a little more than a decade now. And I started off as a indie writer, self-publishing myself. There you go. Publishing my own stuff. I had a military cartoon strip. I put some of my work up on there. People liked it. My first series was based on my dislike of The Walking Dead. And a regular scout team one. And it did pretty well. And I learned a lot. One thing is that I suck at grammar, so I've had to polish up on that. But I've always been a good storyteller. I'm a recruiter in my day job, so it's easy to spin a tale. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, I really should kind of set up a little corporate stuff just to have my own separate thing, right, as opposed to just myself. And a couple of years after that, around 2021, a guy who wanted to learn how to be a writer, a veteran, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got this series about medevac in the 25th century. Lucas Markham, he's an Army Reserve major who was in the medical corps, right?" I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll check it out. I'll help you out." And he's like, "Well, I really don't want to learn how to publish it." And I'm like, "You know what? I'll publish it for you." All right. And Lucas and I went on to start a series called Fey Wars, which did pretty well. And I said, "You know what? This publishing thing is working." And from there, I just started collecting writers, trying to work deals, running around the convention saying, "Hey, write for me," and, getting fistfights with the other publishers over, prospects and stuff like that. Mostly I concentrated to start on veterans because I really wanted to give people a leg up and not have them learn the things that I did the hard way and make the mistakes I did. So if I could help them out, I'm a retired senior NCO. I love training people, seeing soldiers or people develop their potential. So Canon has slowly, pretty much over the last 2 to 3 years, picked up pretty steadily. We have probably a dozen people who have been writing with us or are in progress or writing.
Well, I noticed that you're publishing Cal Spriggs now.
Oh yeah, Cal. Cal's been a friend of mine for a while. He's on the Liberty Con circuit, and he's like, "Hey, you want my leftovers?" I'm like, "Sure." Right. Cal is one of those guys who turns out 1 million words a year, and he throws things at the wall to see if they stick. And he had a series about a post-apocalyptic series. And he's like, "I'm not sure what to do with it." I'm like, "Hey, that's kind of in our wheelhouse, military science fiction." So we published that for him, and he's also got a space science fiction, military science fiction thing we're looking at too. So it's really word of mouth stuff, and we've gotten to the point where people come to us and say, "Hey, would you be interested in publishing my stuff?" We don't have to fight for other authors now. And we've done a lot to bring new writers into the fold, and some more established people are starting to get the word that we're not a bad deal. And I'm trying to build a reputation as a fair company that really has the author's interest at heart. So,
well, it seems like you've built up to where you're about what, 2 or 3 releases a month now.
Well, let's talk about learning curve.
Yeah,
we tried that for a while. We were doing a release every 2 weeks or so, and that was it didn't give us enough time to properly advertise the release and then promote afterwards, right? So now we're going to go to every
quarter. I think John froze.
John froze.
So at least he froze on a good frame.
Yeah, that's a good That's a good look for him. So, walk us through the releases, Mike.
Yeah. So, like you said, it wasn't giving us enough time to properly promote our author's work and really get a good ad campaign going, get the word of mouth spreading amongst the folks, the already existing Canon readers, and then the other forums that we reach out to. So we're shifting now to probably about once a quarter, but we're looking at multiple books in the same quarter, right about the same time, in different genres. So we'll try, we'll do a sci-fi one, maybe a post-apocalyptic or a fantasy one, something like that, right? It depends what's ready. The advice we give our authors when we're editing is do what you need to do to produce the best story you can. We're not on this really strict timeline where you absolutely have to get it out by a certain date or else, because that just puts a lot of stress on people, and that doesn't always produce the best work. So this way, once we know, once we have like a good story set up, then we have certain gates that we try and get through, like getting a cover, right? That takes time to get a good cover. Mm-hmm. Going through both the developmental and then the line edits, getting those done. And while that's all going on, right, we're working with the author and doing our own set of advertising and promotional materials, right, to drum up interest, to make sure that people are not just aware of, but are anxious to see the release date of this book. And then, of course, we're prepping the author then for after the book is released, how to market afterwards and how to keep that kind of, popping up every so often in people's feeds so that if they haven't checked it out yet, they'll go on Amazon and look for it. Or if they've read it, it reminds them to tell their friends, hey, I read this really good book. You should check it out.
That's interesting because you talked about developmental editing, and I know there's a lot of the small presses that don't offer that service. Yeah.
It all goes into doing the best story possible. That's primarily what John brought me on for on the fantasy side, at least, although I've done some of the other books, is the developmental editing where, I'll do the run through on the story and I'll look at the structure of it. Right. And who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? What are the conflicts that they're facing with each other? How are you resolving those conflicts and ratcheting up the tension so that when you get to the climax, it's what the reader is expecting. It's what they look for. And that is what we believe helps make a really good book and what we want people to talk about when they go tell their friends.
Well, I see that John came back. So
sorry about that internet connection.
I understand completely. So, but
and here's the thing: I trust Mike completely to step in and take over.
He did. We seamlessly went into your publishing schedule and why you're backing off a little bit, and I admire that. That dedication to putting, quality work out and supporting your author's vice, trying to just crank out novel, book after book, on the 20 books to 50K model.
Well, that would be great. But most of our authors have day jobs too,
Yeah.
And as I said, how Mike just stepped in seamlessly, I'm trying to build a good team here, a Canon publishing team that
not trying. You have.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have got Mike. Possibly we're going to have somebody manage our audio stuff soon. And we're working with somebody who might become kind of like my executive officer, so to speak, or, to help me with the production end of things. And we have Brian Mays, who does our marketing. Brian's an old friend of mine. He's not part of the author circuit or anything like that. He's an outside guy who brings kind of a fresh perspective on market and what might sell, what might not sell, So we're trying to build a team that can support the authors and not just bring we'll publish your book to them. We also do training. We have classes on how to do social media. I invited Kyle Hanna from Jumpmaster Press to come in for our next author meeting. Yeah. We have a monthly author meeting where we just get on and say, how's it going? We, run down what you're working on. How's that working out? How can we support you in what you're doing? And it's not crack the whip and hurry up and drop the manuscript. It's let's get a good book out. Like Mike just said, we want good stuff out there that people talk about that focuses on character and story instead of, whiz bang.
Cranking out words.
Yeah. So.
All right. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about how Canon Publishing supports their authors and what they've got in the pipeline. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is The Next Chapter. And we're back with Michael Morton and John Holmes. J.F. Holmes from Canon Publishing. And when we left, we were talking about how Canon is separating themselves from a lot of the other small publishing houses in how they support their authors. So, John, tell us some more about that, because I find it interesting. And I wish long time ago I shouldn't say long time ago, but when I started, I had hooked up with an outfit like you guys.
Well, I mean, one of the easy things is, communication nowadays. We can have Zoom meetings. We're very approachable on Facebook or whatever other platform you want to do. And this way, working with an author is very interactive. They can drop in. We have a social media group on Facebook where people can ask questions, of each other to get support or, hey, just bounce ideas off each other, that kind of stuff. In regards to the business model that we're doing, I believe in earning the money that we're getting paid for, sharing royalties. We work completely off of shared royalties. I don't charge anybody anything except I've been told that I need to stop giving free author copies to the guys.
It's the opposite. He gives away stuff, not charges stuff.
No, but a couple books for free, but I try and support them at conventions. The thing is, if we're making money, they're making money, right? And vice versa. If they're out there promoting and helping themselves, then we're going to make money as a partnership. I'm not trying to be like, oh, well, I have to take the first $1,000 out of your royalties to support the production. I'm taking the risk on, providing you the support, the cover, the editing, the marketing, and of course, all authors are welcome to market themselves also. But we're trying to provide that support so that somebody can do the writing work, right? They don't have to worry about, oh, well, I have to, the company, I'm not going to see any royalties until I hit a certain mark or something like that. No, what you make, we make, right? So I'm trying to get people invested in the company because they're going to see the profit come out the other end, right? We try hard to have a team of guys. I mean, sometimes our meetings go pretty off the rails because we're having a good time. We're all just they pick on each other a little bit. Most of us are veterans, but some are not, and the guys that aren't still get it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you couldn't be writing in this genre and not get it.
No, I mean, well, we're trying to expand to fantasy, right? So we have a couple authors who are brand new writers in their fantasy. The other thing we try and do is give opportunity to new authors. We do once a year a novella contest, right? With the idea that novellas can be expanded into novels. And we did our first one last year. We're open to submissions this year. It's called the High Caliber Awards. And the first, second, and fourth.
Third.
No.
You mean for last year? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, for last year. First, second, and fourth we actually said, hey, you had great stories, which they did. I mean, Mike, you loved the best story there, Kevin Harris's. We said, hey, do you want to turn this into a novel? Right. And that was the idea. If you can write a novella, you can write a novel, right? Because you have the plot and everything. And we've been working with them for the last 9 months or so to prep them to head out and get their books out there. And it's only for people who haven't been published before in a long format, right? And so this way, we're taking the new baby author from A to Z and launching him out the door with some training on social media, with, prepping the grounds for announcement for them to be out there. And they've already got an award in their pocket, basically, right? So that's a way that we support them. They don't have to beat down the doors to, go to other publishers and be like, look, I won the High Caliber Award. Would you be interested in my stuff?
And the award isn't just a piece of paper. The judges we had last year, Jamie Ibsen was one.
Jamie, right? Marissa Wolf, Cedar Sanderson, and Bill Irwin.
So these are people of note who've been in the industry. They know what they're talking about.
Right. We can put the judging outside the house, and they win cash. They win cash too, which is always nice, right?
Yeah. It's a cherry on top.
Yeah, I know, but it's an opportunity, and people love to brag about the things they win, and we get some really good work out of them, and we know the caliber of the author, no pun intended, that we're going to be working with because they've already turned in some good material to us. So, Mike, you want to talk more about how you work directly with the authors?
Yeah. So, once John approves the introduction of a manuscript, then I will take a read through. Like I talked about in the previous segment, I'm looking for, who's your protagonist and what are their goals, and same thing with the antagonist. What are their goals, right? What's going on? What trajectory do you have that's going to put them two in conflict with each other? Because conflict is where the story happens, right? If nothing is in conflict, then there's nothing really to be told about the story. So that's a lot of what I look at. That's a lot of the advice and the feedback that I give authors is hey, look, if you're going to have a bad guy, if you're going to have someone who's really evil, you got to make them really evil, right? They have to be dastardly. They have to show to the reader why they should be reviled and hated.
Yeah, the reader has to dislike them.
Exactly. And then that's when the protagonist overcomes them, it just makes that victory so much sweeter, right? Because the guy gets his comeuppance for all the things that he's done. Conversely, if it's a story where it's the character against the elements, right? Then it makes the victory so much sweeter because you've seen everything that this person has had to overcome that proved their own internal worth and their own mettle to get to that point.
So, John, are you publishing all your work through Canon now, or are you doing some other stuff? I hate to put you on the spot like that, but
no, I'm not. My muse is dead and buried out in my backyard someplace. I'm sure she'll come crawling back soon. But for the last 2 years, I've really focused on running the company and getting that going. And
there's no problem with that. I mean,
No, I am working on the next Fae Wars book in conjunction with Jason Weiser, and then I'll have my own Fae Wars book, which continues my original story. That should be out sometime this year. All right. So other than that, I'm trying to give my attention to the company, so I wish I had, was able to just sit down and do 5 different things at once. But unfortunately, it takes a lot of creative energy.
I am always envious of people like we talked about Cal Spriggs about, he's got Lord knows how many books he's in the process of writing.
Yeah.
And I have a problem keeping one plot line straight, let alone be writing in 3 of them at the same time.
Yeah. Plus we all get older or find ourselves at different points in our life. And what interested us before isn't necessarily the same thing. 10 years ago, I was more concerned about putting a roof over my head, right? And writing and making sure that I was earning a little bit of money off of it. and I have a pretty good job, and my focus is more on building up a company that has a legacy to it. So that there's that. Getting back to what Mike was saying about the story, I think that one of the biggest things that canon wants to focus on is characters, right? I always said that my stories are about the people in the stories, not all the plot elements or anything like that. So we also try hard to help people understand how to write a character with real emotions and feelings and, consequences to their actions and that kind of stuff. So hopefully that helps the quality of our books.
Well, and I can't agree with you more because I was fortunate enough to create, some pretty good characters. And I'm a firm believer that, a great storyline with a so-so character is not going to succeed, but a great character in a so-so storyline will probably sell the book.
Yeah,
because the character will sell the book.
Right. I wrote post-apocalyptic fiction with zombies in it, and I'm always like, the zombies are a prop. It's about the characters, and people fall in love with my characters. So that's what sells a story.
And that's why the people will pick up the next book in the series, because they want to see what that guy or girl or zombie, if he's your hero, does next.
That's actually an argument I've had with some of our authors. Like, I want to do something else in the same universe. Well, no, they want to see what happened to, Billy Bob and Jane Doe.
That's why they read your first and then your second book. They want to see what happens to him next.
Yeah. One of the original things we do that's a little bit different is we have shared universes. Our Fallen Empire universe is set in the 28th century. And it's a homage to David Drake, Space Mercenaries. But each writer will have his individual storyline, but they're separate. They don't impinge upon each other, even though they're set in the same universe, right? So you could pick up one of my books and read about the Irish Brigade, or you could pick up Mike's book about the 76th Mist microgravity strike team, right? Mike's a great writer, by the way. I would drag him back to the canon fold sooner or later, okay? But you can pick those up and you're like, hey, I recognize this universe, right? But it's a different story. And we do that for Fallen Empire, Fey Wars. We're probably
let me cut you off right there. Let's come back from the break and talk about that some more. This is Fred Hughes, and it's the next chapter. Thanks for coming back. We're still talking with John and Mike from Canon Publishing, and they're going to talk about what Canon's doing right now, their new stuff, and I'll just let them do that. I'm going to share the screen here.
Yeah, sure. So okay.
These are the latest releases for Canon Publishing.
Yes. All right. So as we mentioned, Cal Spriggs' Hell Train, which is a post-apocalyptic take, kind of cool. Apocalyptic survivors riding across the country on a train, trying to find a safe haven. Al Hagen wrote a great post-apocalyptic book set in Texas where a pandemic killed 90% of the people in the world. He's got some great characters in there too. Jonathan LaForce wrote a
first of a kind.
What do we call it?
Tactical romance.
Tactical romance, yes, which has actually been doing really well. He's been getting some great reviews. It's a English or British all-female engineer unit gets paired up with a U.S. Marine Corps artillery platoon at a FOB in Afghanistan, and hijinks and combat ensue, and romance, shall we say. All right.
John's book is one of those rare gems. When I first read through it, doing my developmental editing, I came across a particular scene that I immediately messaged John, and I said, you got to beef this up, because this is the kind of scene that will make readers come up to you at a convention and say, LaForce, you bastard. And they have. So that has been one of my favorite books to edit so far.
The other one we get is somebody in Al's book killed somebody with a cheese grater.
Yeah, that was great. That was amazing.
That's a thing, right? Where's the cheese grater, right?
That's what makes a con, when people come up and pull out just a little
or start throwing rubber ducks at each other.
Yeah.
We had a little war with Raconteur at Pecan, so I'm sure
the war is still ongoing.
I was there. I witnessed part of it.
So I have my fourth book from a Regular Scout Team 1. I did originally 11 books, and I'm republishing them, better editing, put in correct time order, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Chosen by the Sword is our first fantasy effort. It's kind of a professor who gets mixed up in a monster hunting thing. And Mike, you want to talk about it a little bit? You're more familiar with it than I am.
Yeah. So Charles is an amazing writer. He's got that friendly narrator style. He's the kind of guy that you could easily imagine being a storyteller in the old oral tradition. The way that he talks and he makes his character relatable. Most of us, almost all of us, right, are not going to get involved in monster hunting, but that's what happens to Professor Dave Howard. He gets involved in monster hunting, and so you get the every person feel from his point of view. And it was just an amazing book, and he's another one of those writers that was a joy to read through and edit with him.
Yeah, and you're right. It's kind of like I got handed this possessed sword that's making me kill monsters. I have no idea what I'm doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the Big Dead one is Shane Grice's third book in his Line series. It's set in the same universe as a Regular Scout Team 1, but it's his take as a mechanized infantry officer on it, and it's completely different. And Shane was a Dragon finalist for the second book in the series. So, that's Hillbilly's calling me. I don't want to talk to him. Sorry. And then Path to Freedom is James Copley's science fiction space opera effort about people who were genetically modified to help win a war. And then after the war, thank you very much. Bye. They were made second-class citizens, so they kind of struck out on their own to basically, find their way in space. It's got a little bit of a Firefly feel to it, kind of.
Okay.
And then Dan Kemp doubling down as his second effort in his ultra-secret private military intelligence contracting company, which, if you're a fan of Ringo or any of those guys and Cold War skullduggery and gunfights and beautiful women, dig Dan's books. He writes big books with big adventures, and they're really good. So those are our latest ones that we put out. If you scroll down, you'll see the series that we do.
Well,
no, good. Keep going. Oh yeah, don't forget up at the top, sign up for our stuff. Right?
Oh yeah. Hey everybody, sign up, join the crew, get on their email list. There it is. So the website is canonpublishing.us. Yep. Go there, sign up for the email, and you won't miss anything.
Yeah. Okay.
It's coming out, and then we got some of
This is a Fey Wars, which is a basically Tolkien's elves invade the United States and the rest of the world, and we throw down with them. And it's tanks versus dragons, and it's freaking awesome. So I wrote the first book. Lucas wrote the second book. James Copley wrote the third one. We have an anthology. We were planning on dropping at least 4 more of these this year. So it's a trip. It really is. It's great. One of our best sellers, and good deal. This, of course, are the best post-apocalyptic books ever written in the history of mankind, with the most awesome characters. And
the funniest thing is the way they came about is, I'll tell it because John was afraid, doesn't like telling it anymore. But he and his wife were watching The Walking Dead, and John, as many military members will do when they're watching a show that's not portraying things correctly, will be complaining, and his wife was like, "Well, why don't you do better?"
And I did.
So he did.
Yeah. And 2 Dragon finalists out of that one. So, and basically this is me projecting what I would do in the zombie apocalypse, hypothetically, because I'm not as competent as these guys are. But, and if my VA meds didn't stop coming. So,
and we don't want to read about what you do. We want to read about what these folks would do.
What the heroes would do. Right. Yeah. So, keep going down. And
The Thin Red Line.
There's Shane's series, right? Which I said same world, but very different take on things. So, and this is the 25th century medevac. If you're a fan of MASH or any of those kind of series, but it's set in the 25th century, and the theme is that you're not going to die if the Valkyries come and get you, right? And it's really good. Lucas modeled the whole thing on the war in the Pacific, but it's set in space against an alien race. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Last little part here before we have to part ways. Where are you guys going to be at in the near future? People wanted to reach out and see you.
Next is going to be tomorrow. I'll be here in my office as I am every day. Don't come by my house. We'll be at MarsCon in January. That's our next big convention for Canon,
which is in Norfolk.
Yep. And then Mike, you're going to
So I'll be at Superstars Writing Seminar in Colorado Springs in February.
I'll see you there.
Yep. Some guys are going to be at Fantasy, which I'm not sure when that is.
Fantasy is not happening this year.
There's no Fantasy next year.
Oh, okay.
Well,
James Coakley's going to something. But
FenCon. I think he's going to FenCon.
FenCon, that's right, in Dallas. And then our next big thing is going to be after that LibertyCon, which I may not be there, but Canon will be there in force. So,
well, I want to thank both of you for being on the show. I had a fun time, learned a lot. Hope it was as fun for you as it was for me. That's it for this week's show. I'm Fred Hughes, and this is The Next Chapter.